Apple cider vinegar is something that I've incorporated into my intermittent fasting routine for the past couple years now. And today I'm sharing why it is that I use apple cider vinegar in my intermittent fasting routine, as well as how I incorporate it in today's video. Alright guys, if you're new to my channel and you don't know who I am, my name's Autumn and I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's in nutrition human performance. On my channel, I'm typically talking about the science-backed and holistic methods that you can use in order to achieve your wellness dreams. So if you have a wellness goal in mind, make sure you subscribe. Okay, so if you're using intermittent fasting for weight loss just in general, you're actually inherently utilizing the strategy of decreasing or storing hormone insulin. I mean, that's one of the main perks of intermittent fasting, other than the improved gut health and gut rest, is that you get to lower your insulin levels as a result of just not eating as often. When your levels of the storing hormone insulin are higher, it actually shuts off something called lipolysis, which literally means fat breakdown. But on the flip side, when insulin is lower, it allows lipolysis to turn back on, and therefore fat burning is turned up. So with weight loss being a main goal, then turning on lipolysis by helping to naturally decrease the insulin level is really important. And this is where apple cider vinegar can come into play. In the past, one of the main focuses that apple cider vinegar has been on is helping with type 2 diabetes, but for those same reasons, it can also help with weight loss. Before researchers had really dove into human trials with vinegar, they found that in animal trials that the acetic acid, which is within vinegar, helped to suppress body mass in animals. And since then, researchers have been diving into vinegars and apple cider vinegar included as a potential aid in helping with weight loss. There's a really interesting 2009 double-blind study done in Japan on obese individuals, and the individuals were broken up into 3 groups. One group that drank 500 milliliters of just regular liquid. The second group had the same 500 milliliters of liquid, but it added in 15 mils or about a tablespoon or so of vinegar. And the third group had the 500 milliliters of liquid as well, but with the 30 milliliters or roughly 2 tablespoons of vinegar. And throughout the 12-week study, there are about 50 people in each of these groups, so about 150 people total in the study, which isn't a huge study, but it's definitely a step up from the 12-person study that we've seen in the past with a lot of the other vinegar studies. And by the end of the 12-week study, both of those experimental groups, so both groups that had vinegar, had decreased BMI, visceral fat, waist circumference, and triglycerides, which is a marker of heart health. And something I found interesting is that within this study, there really weren't any changes that were seen until the first 4 weeks were over. And beyond those 4 weeks, going into the 12 weeks is when the researchers started to really see that the vinegar groups, both of them, really started to diverge from the control group. So there could even be some time that it takes to really see an effect as well. Something else really important to note is that the researchers had found a dose-dependent relationship between the vinegar and the benefits. This essentially means that the group that had less vinegar had slightly less of the benefits, and the group that had more vinegar had slightly more of the benefits. And you have to keep in mind, this is still a very small amount of vinegar that was being used, at just 1 to 2 tablespoons. We're not talking about having to drink this whole thing every day. And a theory behind why it is that the vinegar or the acetic acid within the vinegar is so beneficial is because of its effect on blood glucose and insulin. One small Swedish study had found that the blood glucose levels and insulin levels were improved by having acetic acid before a higher carbohydrate meal. The study also found that the acetic acid seemed to help improve satiety of the meal as well. And satiety is something that we know is extremely important. We talk a lot about it on this channel because it helped to prevent those much more detrimental sugar cravings later in the day. Not to mention that eating until satiated helps to make it so you have those gaps between meals where insulin levels can naturally come back down. With all of this in mind, this is why using apple cider vinegar is kind of a natural choice to pair with intermittent fasting, because intermittent fasting's main goal is to help improve the insulin response, and that seems to be what it is that apple cider vinegar is doing, or just rather even vinegar in general is doing. And personally, weight loss isn't a goal of mine, but I still really like to use the daily apple cider vinegar before my first meal with intermittent fasting, because stabilizing my blood glucose levels is very important to me. I have found that my anxiety levels are just better improved when my blood glucose levels are more stable. And personally, I choose to have my apple cider vinegar about 10 to 15 minutes before I go to break my fast. And the way I do it is I start off with a glass of water, and I'm going to add in anywhere between 1 to 2 tablespoons worth of the apple cider vinegar. As part of my complete intermittent fasting bundled protocols, I also add in a pinch of sea salt into it as well. And I personally prefer the CELTIC sea salt. As you can see, I've used this quite a bit. It's seen some days. And it's also really important to make sure you're sipping on this. So same reason why it's important to dilute it, because if you have just straight vinegar or straight apple cider vinegar, it can really cause a lot of stomach upset, and it's not really recommended. Diluting it helps to make it so you won't get that nausea effect. And by sipping on it over the course of 5 to 10 minutes, this also makes it so you're not just chugging the apple cider vinegar and helping to prevent that same nausea effect that can happen. And something that I typically recommend to the AM peeps who are using the bundle guidelines is you can even start off with less apple cider vinegar if you're finding that's just too strong for you at the moment. So even just starting off with a teaspoon is a great place to start if you don't like to have that full tablespoon just yet. In fact, if you're interested in the complete intermittent fasting bundle, I have it linked down the description below. And while I'm drinking my apple cider vinegar or ACV sipper, this is when I'll also go to start to make my meal as well so that I can sip on the apple cider vinegar while I'm prepping my meal. In fact, if you want to check out one of my favorite break fast meals that I have after I have my apple cider vinegar, you can check it out right here. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love the science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out with new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, apple cider vinegar cheers, and I'll see you in my next video.